Hey guys, this is Dawn. Welcome back to Gulf Coast October. In this series, I'm reading my book, Enchanted in Bay St. Yaya, chapter by chapter. And today we are going to read chapter 3, Father Fourleaf, Claire, and the Beldam of Storyville. So hang out. Hey guys, welcome back. I'm hanging out at this park. It's a beautiful day, and so this is just how we're going to do this. And this is chapter 3, Father Fourleaf, Claire, and the Beldam of Storyville. Bert and I woke early. Instead of going to the hole, we stayed in and goofed off for a few hours before Mass. We drank cheap coffee, and I played the piano while he sang loud, silly lyrics. The dog and the bird sang along too. Bird's dog is a sweet female coonhound mix named Okey Doke. His bird is a green parrot named Rudy. Between the four of us, I don't see how we didn't wake the neighbors. The church is right on the beach. We got there around 8, and we were plopped down on the front side of St. John watching the seagulls that had gathered up just across the highway. They surrounded a large, rusted, cattywampus garbage can, and it reminded me of how we all congregate at the hole. Bird and I sat in the alcove next to the outside basement steps. Bird sat on a bench surrounded by a small patch of grass, and I was perched on the cinder block safety wall that held the handrail for the steps behind me. It would have been a 16-foot drop to the bottom should I have leaned back too far and lost my seating. Spanish moss hung above us from the low branches of an old live oak. The tide was still out a bit. The sun had risen, but it was still low. The effect it had on the water was a specific type of sparkling that one might not appreciate unless they had some strong childhood memories of it. There was a chaotic delicateness to it. I related to the chaos. I trusted the white blinding sparkles. The seagulls made their way down to the water's edge. Their feet seemed to tap around the dancing white reflections. Father Fourleaf was on his way up the beach from his morning contemplations. Some of the gulls became annoyed, so they squawked and rose up their wings. Many of them took to the air, but only long enough to cause a commotion of noise and feathers. My attention went around to these different things going on. I longed for this for so many years. I would only wish homesickness on a few select people. Bird, how do you trust all of this? I asked as I waved my arms around. Bird cocked his head to the side, and I kept talking. I go through these spiritual phases. I have times where I feel super connected, incredibly spiritual, and nothing can get me. Other times, I feel completely abandoned. When I feel abandoned, I either get mad or I get really scared, and then I get stuck. Understandable, Bird interrupted, but only to validate that he was listening. I continued. Then, what I've noticed is I become resentful. There are times when I don't believe in anything, and I can barely remember feeling anything, if ever at all. I question my sanity. I feel like I'm all over the place. The only consistency I have is none. Can consistent patterns of inconsistency count? Or is it more like inconsistent patterns of consistency? My head hurt, and I was frustrated with myself. Bird squished his chin in and raised his eyebrows. I was trying to explain that I feel completely inadequate and lost, but confused how that can be when people keep telling me how smart I am. I just wasn't smart enough to have the words to get my point across. I wasn't even quite sure if I knew what I was talking about. I needed to get it out, and I needed help. Pauline was so far away, but I had friends on the coast now. Still, I was feeling incredibly powerless no matter what anyone told me I was capable of. Bird relaxed his chin, but his eyebrows didn't bulge. Well, kiddo, I don't completely know, his voice started off soft. But maybe, just maybe, you ain't as scrambled up there as you think. You just don't know it yet. Before you came home, didn't nobody up there want you to know how smart you are? Folks needed you to stay down on yourself so they could feel better about themselves. Heck, I think all your wheels are turning all right. They just go in different directions at the same time is all. That's not your fault. At least they turn. Some folks don't even got that much going for them. Some folks would have broke down after all you've been through, but you're home now. Things are going to be different now. You'll figure it out, and I hold you to it. It's the way it is. I had moments where I could feel what he was saying, and I felt safe. But when he said that things would have to be different, I felt like I was being scolded. I could feel that my neck was getting red, and I was getting dizzy too. Whatever, I said. Maybe I'm just defected. I wish folks would accept me how I am and quit trying to convince me that I'm smart and I'm strong. Bird whipped his face in my direction. His forehead rolled up, and he said, "The more you say them negative words on yourself, the stronger the demons become. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying to hold it in. Tell it. Get it out. But don't stay stuck. Find out what the hell you're going to do about it. Pray for guidance if you have to." Quite frankly, I was sick of praying. I looked down at my hands and I whispered that sounded terrifying. Bird laughed loud enough for the sound to bounce off the 3 brick walls that surrounded us. It startled me, but I know that laugh so well. It means that it may seem hard now, but I'll look back one day and I'll be amazed at how far I've traveled. I crouched a bit and I smiled sideways. So, Mr. Smarty Pants, rain your great knowledge upon me, I said. Bird is so smart that his wisdom often goes over people's heads. Part of your journey is refining all of that confusion back into the gift that God meant for you to have in the first place. God don't mess up now, right? We do. I guess, I replied. He pointed at me. You have to make a choice. Then he used 2 fingers to point across the road and scan the horizon. He informed me that the devil is out there. He looked like he was accusing the Sparkle Stompers. Then he pointed to his forehead with his middle finger, poked it repeatedly, and said, "Make a choice and stick with it for a while, like you were doing homework. Act like it's research. Come on now, this ain't fancy stuff, but make a choice." Now he was jabbing at his palm with his ring finger, and I realized he had been giving me a list. And every time you get bored or annoyed and want to give up, don't. How long's one of them college semesters up the street? I don't know. I've never been to college. 3, 4 months? That sounds about right, don't you think? Give yourself at least 3 months. He held up 3 fingers, and I had to close my eyes. I was trying to remember the suggestions in order, and I really needed him to quit talking with his hands. So, if I had been taking notes, it may seem something like I needed to make a choice about something, watch my back, take action, and do this for 3 months. Okay, I thought. Well, what will my soul-searching project be on? My attention snapped back when I heard a horn honk down the road, and the seagulls started freaking out again. Bird was still carrying on, and you don't gotta go telling everybody about it. He slapped his knee hard as he said this. The sound of him smacking his leg with his wide, flat, open palm bounced back. I had just mentally come back, and now I was looking around and distracted into wondering how echoes work. Mass was about to start. The priest's real name is Clover Clovis. Everyone calls him Father Fourleaf. His brother's name is Cletus Clovis, and his baby sister goes by Clucky Clovis. Growing up, the adults in the family all referred to the children by both their first and last names, and as you can imagine, this can wear on a person. Father Fourleaf couldn't have been more approving of the nickname we gave him. He had admitted from the pulpit that he still had daytime nightmares of the sound that his mom made when she'd holler out for the kids. Name by name, this audio display sounded like 2 hens fighting. It was harder for her to pronounce Clucky Clovis, as she often became tongue-tied and would resort to addressing her as whatever your name is. You sticking around, Bert asked me. It looked like Father was going to leave the doors open through the Mass. I loved the ambiance of the service paired with the nostalgic sounds from the beach. I don't know, you going to sit front and center? I asked back. Bird gave a little growl, then winked at me. I hopped off the divider and smacked my hands together to knock off the cinder block grit from my palms. Okie dokie. We made our way around to the front of the old beautiful monarch doors that were propped open, as they often are. Father really only closes them if the temperature drops below 65 degrees. Sometimes the birds get too close and try to get in. One time, a cocky gull flew straight through the doors across the chapel and snapped the host clean out of Father's hands while he was holding it up to be consecrated. Everyone was horrified, except me. I thought it was hilarious. Father would drag out the huge floor fan in the heat of summer, and it would roar like a lullaby and put you in a trance if it didn't knock you out completely. Whatever you do, don't smoke a joint before Mass when the fan's going. You may just get lost in your thoughts forever. The massive bell got my attention as it bellowed out of the tower and echoed across the bay. It seemed as if the birds had just settled down again, and they were now a mess of salt and pepper, losing their minds and longing for a moment free of thundering vibrations. "Good morning, people," Father said. "Good morning, Father," all 5 of us replied. "It is good indeed," he continued. He always says that. I don't even know if he says that because he means it or if it's written up in that book up there. Regardless, it's comforting. Mass went on in its usual way. Other than the daily readings and any thoughts he had on it, it was exactly the same, every day. It's funny how God works. Between the standing up, kneeling down, reciting memorized prayers, and thinking that I'd only been pretending to pay attention, I realized something. I actually had been paying attention. I knew this because I heard something that I could use. Somewhere in all of this, when Father was reciting the verse about relaxing by grassy pastures, I got this warm, fuzzy sensation. Like a familiar feeling, even though I had never had it before. When that happened, it occurred to me that if I am willing to just be, breathe when I need to, listen when I can, shower if I need to, and eat if I want to, and most of all, connect with my friends as much as I can, things will unfold and be revealed in God's time. If I make the choice to admit that I am not good at forcing things to happen and I just do the basic little things, It might add up later to me being something more like a whole person. Maybe that fuzzy familiar feeling is a gift from the spirit to let me know that I'm on the right track. I know I can do this now because I have Bird by my side. Father Fourleaf might appreciate knowing about this, and maybe I'd give Pauline a call tonight. I was wondering what I could do for Bird to repay the favor. Then I remembered the project specifically would reject the idea of forcing something like that into fruition. I said an apology quietly to myself. I didn't know it then, but I was already practicing paying my respects to my higher self for surviving more shit than most first world folks my age ever had. As we stood up to partake in the Eucharist, I realized for the first time that we were sitting in the back row. Still in the center, but all the way in the back. Bird had sat next to me after all. Mary and Joe Aloysius, our friends from the diner, were sitting up front and to the left, and the lady from Long Beach was sitting where Bird normally sat. It was already working. I could see how my being there was helping Bird to break his old habits. This is how community and fellowship were meant to be. I didn't even notice the lady from Long Beach's perfume until I was right behind her to take the body of Christ. I don't think Bird had either. But when I did, I imagined it being a mix of cinnamon, musk, and nutmeg. I quite liked it. After Mass, we all congregated out front for a while Joe Aloysius smoked. Father introduced us to Claire. "It's nice to meet you all finally," she said with a bit of a shake in her voice. She was slender, almost bony. Her skin was white like alabaster, but her eyes were so dark you could barely see where her irises stopped and her pupils began. She was tall enough that I had to look up to make eye contact with her when I was standing close to her. Her copper-colored hair was probably long, but she had it in a low spiral bun in the back. Wild hairs made themselves known, and overall, it seemed her hair didn't like being told what to do. You could see it was trying to fray and curl its way out of the tie. "Could I interest anyone in some coffee?" Father asked. I started to say yes, but everyone else was so quick to snob off. I didn't know what to do. I rolled with whatever Bird said he was going to do. I couldn't tell you what that was because I was lost in thought and plotting on how I could stick around and have coffee with Father and this intriguing woman. She was familiar. She reminded me of the lunatic witch in the stories that Papa Park used to tell me when I was a little girl. The Beldam of Storyville. She was a witch who could shape-shift and become anything your heart desired. She could be any color, size, shape. She could sing any jazz tune you could ever think of, and her voice gave an effect of not only her vocals, but also of all the instruments together at once. She could seduce a saint, dance with him all night long, but then she would eat him for supper. I was older before I heard the more adult details, but when I was little, that was as gruesome as it got. And because I was young, I imagined Storyville completely different than it actually was, even for current day. I didn't have a clue as to what a red light district was. No, I was a child. I imagined gingerbread houses and peppermint stepping stones, lamp bulbs made of brightly colored gumdrops, and stages to sing on made up of pancakes with red licorice rope for curtains and jelly roll tiebacks. Most of all, the men were all handsome, and the ladies were all dainty and sweet. Maybe that's what Storyville was like. On the other hand, maybe not. Bird and I were climbing into his truck, and I couldn't resist. "I'll see you later, Bird. I got something," I started. His glare interrupted me. After all that talking we did that morning, and spiritual reflection during Mass, here I was trying to lie to his face. "Watch it," he said. "I want to go drink shitty coffee with Father Fourleaf in the Beldam. I just really want to," I pleaded, as if I was trying to get a pricey treat at the corner store. Bird relaxed and chuckled at me for being so immature. "The Beldam? That's fine. You don't have to go explaining yourself. Go on. Tell me about it later." He tipped his hat and he winked at me. It was easier than I thought, and off I went, hollering out like a child to Father and Claire. "Wait! I want to hang out and have coffee too." I skipped back up the walk to the front of the church where they were still standing. They were so kind to my annoying ways. They both smiled and reached out to me. The three of us were arm in arm, with me in the middle, laughing as we walked back into the church. We made our way to the kitchen at the end of the narthex. It was small and cozy with 2 large recliner chairs, a small dining table with seating for 2, and a bar with 3 stools. I made a beeline for the recliners. Claire is less selfish and offered to make the coffee. Father shrugged and showed his palms in agreement. She seemed to know where everything was without being told. "I don't want to make it too strong for you, dearie. I hope they have some hazelnut creamer in there for you," she said. I started to wonder how she knew what I liked, but I blew it off and I enjoyed the attention. She turned on both lamps and turned off the overhead fluorescents. She looked at Father for approval, and of course again he showed his palms. Before too long, I had a plate of fruit and cookies in my lap and a big mug full of hazelnut coffee with whipped cream on top. Claire and Father chatted about things that bored me while I enjoyed my snack. I felt guilty that Bird was missing out, but I could tell him all about it later. Father asked us if we enjoyed the liturgy, but then they both stared at me. I had to take a gulp of coffee to wash down a super soft oatmeal cookie before I could speak. Yeah, I liked it, I said. I still technically had some cookie in my mouth. They both smiled but still stared at me. I used to hate when people would do this to me. I was conditioned that it was a trap. Just because people ask what's on your mind doesn't mean they really want to know. Or if they do, it's so they can use it against you later. I reminded myself that I was working on being less traumatized about everything. So I spoke. Well, I started. I really liked it. Bird and I were talking before Mass about God-given intuition, and it had me thinking about how people go around on this earth flapping their mouths and breaking the spirit of innocent people wherever they go. It breaks people, I said. I started to take another bite. This time the cookie was chocolate chip, but Father pressed me to explain further. Well, the people that need to be shut up are the ones that are doing the hurting. But while you were preaching, I felt pity on someone who had hurt me really bad over the past few years. And then pity on one of my elders who was so awful, actually worse. They were someone's punching bag at one time too, I guess. They were just too broken to do anything about it. They confused misery with strength. I felt thankful I didn't have to relate to being awful to others to find joy in my day. And then I shoved the entire cookie in my mouth before they could get anything else out of me. That's very thoughtful, my dear, Claire said. She was so kind, so comforting, and she smelled so good. She smiled at Father again, and he smiled back. It was apparent that so far he was her best friend in town. Dearie, I would like to spend some more time with you. I know you and Bird spend a lot of time together, but I would love another woman to talk to and do things with, she said. Don't you have friends in Long Beach? I mean, anyway, there's plenty of activities during the weekends with a lot more women showing up to those. She's asking you, not them, Father interrupted. I felt so awkward. I was 38 years old, and yes, most of my friends were older. Pauline in Tennessee was close to 80 years old herself. Bird's in his mid-60s. But Claire, she was ancient. I felt like a silly child about to be told what to do. That was exactly the kind of thing that I was trying to outgrow. I needed to practice boundaries, but I hadn't figured out how to do it without seeming so juvenile. All right, I'm sorry. I just don't know how much time I have. I need to find a job. I sold my car when I moved here a few months ago, and I'm almost tapped, I said. Claire smiled wide and laughed in excitement. I would love to help you. Let me pull you away from that diner for just a few days, and let's see if we can get you making some sense. What do you say? I wasn't exactly sure how I felt about this, but the extroverted part of my personality betrayed me, and out it came. Well, okay, I said, but I can't drink coffee and eat cookies all day or I'll just get fat. Anyway, I don't really need help. I just need to fill out a few job applications, and someone will eventually call me back. I didn't think it could happen, but her smile got even wider. I noticed her incisors were a bit longer than the rest of her teeth. Not like a vampire, just unique in its own way. Actually, most of her teeth were quite crooked. Even so, she was incredibly beautiful when she smiled. She was starting to seem less old and lanky than I originally thought. She paused for a bit and seemed to be looking around inside of her own head. I admired that. She thinks before she talks. But then I myself started thinking, too. Out of the clear blue, I started fantasizing about the Beldam of Storyville again. I wondered what she looked like in real life. I wondered if she was beautiful with red hair and crooked teeth. Maybe if a lover was interested in that, I guess. Then I had a flash of a vision of Claire violently dismembering a handsome man in a three-piece suit while he screamed for mercy in his life. They were surrounded by candied cherries and lollipops. In real time, Claire brought me back to reality by flicking the lamp off and on a few times. Shall we? She asked. So, thank you for hanging out for Chapter 3 of Enchanted and Bay St. Yaya. It's my thumbnail, so I can do that. And you know what? If you're enjoying this at all, thank you. Thank you for the comments. Thank you if you click like on the video. It's real helpful to me. But also, if you were to go to Goodreads.com, I think Amazon too, and try to find it and leave a review on it, that would be so helpful. And an honest review is fine with me. Me reading it's better, though, than you having to read it, because I am dyslexic, and Amazon chopped my book up. But apparently that happens. So I just keep buying the chopped up version, and I scratch out stuff. And but anyways, yeah. But so if you like that, thank you, and hang out, and I'll see you again in Chapter 4. It means that it may seem hard now, but I'll look back one day, and I'll be amazed how far I've traveled. I crouched... Woo! Bird whipped his face in my direction.
Oh my God.
They step. As we stood up, oh no, oh no, oh no. I know he's safe. I know they're gonna get him. I know he's okay.